Hello, this is Erin with The Joy in Pens and Paper, and I would like to do a partially through, mostly through the month, pen and ink review. Just right off the gate, it is the 22nd of February, and I already have a couple of pens that I have written dry. So, yeah, it was a really fun month. So this month I had 8 pens inked up, and then I received a new pen that I went ahead and inked up and have started using. And you can see I added that one here at the bottom. It is the one that 100% looks out of place because the color is not pink. It does look a little black, I think, but it is a really dark green, almost teal with a red sheen to it, and because it's inked up with Robert Oster River of Fire. So I also realized as I was getting this set up, I have been using a Galen Leather everyday notebook with Tomoe River paper to do my currently inked since probably October of 2022. See if I'm correct in that. Oh, I guess the first one I did in here was in February of 2023, but I got this in September of 2022, which is why I thought I used it in October. So I was very surprised to see that I didn't do a currently inked for February in this book, but I did do it in the Cosmo Air Light, and I also have it in my Hobonichi Hone with the new Tomoe River paper. And, I just bopped the camera. I also have it on a Rhodia paper. So I have these different types of paper. Anyway, having said that, I'm just a little sad that I don't have it in the same book that I've been using, because I wanted to have all of these pages in one book, and this is not going to fit, but it is what it is. I can't get mad about it. That's not a good use of my emotional energy. So I'm just going to move on. I do still have a little bit of ink left in the Pilot Firmo, and this is inked up with Diatramentis Document Ink Black. So I'll be using this for some of the writing on my review, specifically for the pens that have been used up. So let me just clear some room here, because I do like to turn my book, and apologies. If I were kind, I'd probably just turn my camera. Maybe I will do that. We'll see. All right, so the things that I'm going to comment on today, or kind of rate today, is the pen and ink combination, or C, the flow of the ink, and you know what, I'm not going to comment on comfort, or not going to score comfort, because most of my pens are comfortable for me, which is why I keep using them. So it is towards the end of my vacation week, and I really had high hopes for all the videos I would be able to make this week, but really I just took some time for myself and my family, because that's what was needed. So is what it is. All right, so the first pen is the Laban Rosa in the lilac colorway, and this has gold accents on the clip and the finials, and then around the band on the cap is kind of a champagne-y color. It's not quite gold, it's a little bit whiter than that, and this has an extra fine two-tone steel nib that is wonderfully bouncy. I love this nib so much. It's my second month in a row using it, and there's a chance this may even be used in March because I'm just really enjoying this. I did use up this ink today, so I did write it dry. So I'm going to take this pen and put it in my little cat pencil case to wash it. So that goes there. Now, I just cannot say enough wonderful things about the Laban Rosa. For me, it is, I mean, if I'm going to start with comfort, it is an exceptionally comfortable pen. The weight is good. I do post it. The nib is just something special, and if you're interested, take a deep dive into my videos. At some point I'll learn how to do this and post the card, I think, that shows up right up here. I don't know how to do that yet, but I did do a couple of videos on the Laban Rosa. When I first got it, the ink flow was really not consistent and I ended up sending it back. They returned it with a new converter, and it definitely made a difference, but it is a very wet, extra fine, and it's just so enjoyable to write with. I did bring, I have a couple notebooks off to the side, so if you hear some rustling, that's what it is. So I did bring into my office the books that I do my writing in to show some writing samples. So this is, I think, a really good for example. So I use the Laban Rosa here, and then I use the Pilot Firmo the rest of today. So you can just see a little bit of difference in how the ink is laid down. It almost has what I imagine a cursive italic nib to be, and it just, the writing is really dynamic in this nib. Can't say enough good things about it. So in terms of the combination, it was inked up with Laban Athena, which is a black ink, but it has a green undertone to it. And the ink flow was wonderful. It was wet. It was consistent. And it was dark, which is exactly what I wanted it to be. There were moments where shading came out, but those moments were pretty infrequent, which is exactly what I wanted for that ink and that pen for the purpose I was using it. For March, I'm likely going to go either with a shimmer because that pen handle shimmers beautifully, or a really nice shading ink because, again, the wetness of the ink, it really lends itself to show off the shading of whatever ink is in it. So I'm really excited to continue exploring different inks in that pen. I've really loved just about every ink that I put in it. I say just about because the first ink that I put in it, which was Wearingeul, apologies, I'm going to do a lot of flipping apparently in today's video. Not Wearingeul, Van Diemen's European Honey Bee Eater Wing. This ink was really not well behaved in the pen, but that's also where I sent it back, and it may not have been the ink, but this was an ink flight sample, so it didn't come with very much, so I wasn't able to go back and try it again. So that's kind of a downside. If anyone has a bottle of this that they would be willing to share a sample my way, I'd be happy to do an ink swap just so that I can try that ink again. All right. So in terms of the combination, it's gonna get a 10 and the flow is going to get a 10, I would 100% do that again. And in fact, I happen to have it right here. The sample that I received is from Van Ness, and they provide you a 4 mm sample. So I have a good amount still left. So I will be able to play with that again. But furthermore, I'll be able to put this in another pen, another nib, and see how it behaves in that, which is the joy in this hobby. All right, the next one, I did not use much at all. So as I've gotten into this year and trialing out a different variation of planning, I thought I would be using black and gray, and I started out with gray being kind of what my intention was and black being what actually happened. Actually, no, vice versa. Black being the plan, gray what actually happened. Then I flipped it. And after doing that for a few weeks, I realized I think I'm just fine using black. And I really haven't used the gray at all. I did pull this out today, the last couple of days, and did some journaling with it. And so this Noveler or Narwhal Nautilus, which the Nautilus is the model that has the porthole. They do also have their Voyage series is the Nautilus body style but doesn't have the porthole. And this is in the colorway Grand Rhapsody, which is just beautiful, stunning. And this was inked up with Colorverse Under the Shade. And I think that's a great name for this ink because this has wonderful shading properties. Also, if you can see here, this is Cosmo Air light paper, and the ink is really struggling to dry on this paper, which is fascinating. Anywho, so the ink had amazing shading. But some hard starts. Which, the way I'm holding my hand, you're not able to see that. So often, oh, you can see it right there. Often starting letters results in skipping. And that's not necessarily new to this ink, so I'm hesitant to say it's an ink issue. I, this past month, purchased brass shims, and I think what I'm going to do is use a brass shim on this nib to see what impact that has. This is a fine nib, but even being a fine nib, it puts down a good amount of ink, and it has, comparatively to a Japanese fine, it does have it is very broad for a fine. So the combination, I did like it. I have loved other inks in this pen a little bit more, so I think I'm going to give the combination an 8, and the flow I'm going to give this a 5, and I think that might be my lowest scoring ever since I started scoring. I generally am pretty kind to my pens and inks, but like I said, I want to do the brass shims and see if that makes a difference. So stay tuned on that. This will probably carry over into March just because I did not get through the ink in this. I think I have a cat who would like to come join this conversation and picking at the door. This may be all out of ink, so we shall see if I can do any writing with it. This is the Leonardo Momento Zero Grande 2.0. I believe the 2.0 has the ink window here versus the regular Momento Zero Grande. And this has an elastic fine nib, so it has a little flex to it, which is different. I really wanted the rose gold, which was a limited edition for the angel skin, and the place I bought it from also had this on sale, and it had limited nib sizes. So I wasn't able to get an extra fine, I wasn't able to get a fine, so I went with the elastic fine. So that's kind of how that played out. And this was one of two pens inked up with Birmingham Pen Company, Pennsylvania Fieldstone. So the combination, let me just show quickly some writing samples. So first of all, I did the accent lettering here with the Leonardo, and I actually did this writing with the Lamy 2000, which was also inked up with Birmingham Pen Company, but the difference between the two was pretty surprising. Now, I also, as I went through my journaling, so many colors that I selected this month were very similar, so I actually found myself labeling. For example, this is Wearing Gold 12th Night, but this is Birmingham Pen Company, Pennsylvania Fieldstone, and I labeled it because when I looked back at this completed page, it looked like it was the same pen for both. Similarly, this is Sailor Ink Studio 252. Yes, 252. And it looks very similar to Birmingham Pen Company, Pennsylvania Fieldstone. So again, I labeled it. This has a little bit more of a purple undertone versus this has the blush pink, but very similar. And then I did do some, let's see if I can find an example right here. So here's where I did the majority of my writing with the Leonardo Memento Zero Grande 2.0, and all of the things that I love about Pennsylvania Fieldstone, this pen and nib showed off beautifully. Oh, it was stunning, stunning, stunning. And then I ended up finishing out, oh, nope. So I used up the pen back on the 20th. So again, let's see if this will give me anything or if this is fully written dry. So the combination, oh, yep, I've got some, is a 10. I ended up putting a little bit too much pressure there, thinking it was going to be dry. And the flow was a 10. What I'm learning by using an elastic fine nib is, even though with a fountain pen you often don't have to put pressure, or you really shouldn't put pressure when you're writing, with an elastic fine nib or flex nib, if you're not doing hand lettering or calligraphy where you want to see the line variation between your downstrokes and your upstrokes, you really need to work to not put any pressure on this, because the nib is so soft and flexible, which is beautiful. So like I said, this nib really showed off all the wonderful properties of this ink. This is definitely a do again. Don't be surprised if you see this combination come back. Really, really, really thoroughly enjoyed this. It was wonderful. So there's that one. Next up is Lamy 2000 with an extra fine nib. So much like many of these pens, I do have a video on this. My quick little backstory is I had initially ordered this in a fine, and then I saw, I think it was Lau's video, that the extra fine is similar to an Architect nib, which is a nib grind that I've been wanting to trial out. So I contacted the seller and said, is there any way you can swap out that fine for an extra fine? They were able to do it easy peasy. And so now I own a Lamy 2000 with an extra fine nib. Now this one as well still has ink in it, which is really great. I think I'll be interested to see as I write here and compare it to this. I think as the month has gone on, the ink has gotten a little darker, a little bit more saturated, which could just be due to perhaps when I first inked it up, there may have been some residual water in the feed that watered down the ink, or it could just be due to evaporation of water. So this, let me actually, before I go further, pull this out so we can get a sample. Oh, right here. So this is a sample. You can see as I was writing, and I do a lot of pausing when I write. I'm tending to multitask or be watching a show or YouTube video. So you can see where I've picked up my pen and waited a moment, either to watch something or to collect my thoughts or whatnot. And then when I put it back down, it's a little darker. So, but it was beautiful to write with. So I think what I will say is the Lamy 2000 continues to surprise me with how it lays down. I find that I tend to turn the nib slightly to the side, and that's where I get a little bit more line variation versus if it's kind of straight or a little bit more, I don't know, parallel maybe with the page. And it's just the tiniest little shift of how I'm holding it, which is fascinating. I really like it. So comfort of the Lamy 2000 is a 10. It's a really comfortable pen, really easy to work with. It's so pretty. And the flow is also a 10. It's been really, really lovely to write with. So there's a Lamy 2000. Now the next one, I love this pen, but interestingly, the inks that I've put in it so far, I prefer in other pens. And I think that might speak to a few things. It could speak to where I'm at in my fountain pen journey. So many people start with extra fine and fine, and then move to more broader nibs. I'm slowly doing that. I think a lot slower than most fountain pen enthusiasts, if I'm being critical of myself or self-reflective, however you want to say it. But yeah, I really loved it's so this is inked up with Colorverse Brunch Date, and I really loved Brunch Date in the Leonardo Memento Zero Grande. I really loved the shading and everything else, and I think the fine nib just didn't show it off. So I am on a mission to find that ink that just is, chef's kiss with this pen. So if you have a Pilot Decimo with a fine nib, or even a vanishing point, and there's an ink that you absolutely love in it, let me know. I would love to consider some other options. Think outside the box that I've created. So this pen, it's an exceptionally lightweight pen. And my wondering is whether perhaps a darker ink may be a better fit. So the combination, I'm going to go with a 7. It's not necessarily an ink flow issue, but I'll give it a 9 for ink flow. I just love the click. Pilot, you did it right. All right, this next one is another one that I'm going to say it's written dry. I will try because I see a little ink sloshing around in there, but it's pretty close to used up. So this is another Novelar, and this is a collaboration with Galen Leather Company, and this has a medium nib, and it's inked up with Wearing Gold 12th Night. Oh, now this ink is stunning, 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 stunning. So here is an example, and you can see that there's certainly, as with any shimmer ink, you're going to get some writing where there's concentrated shimmer. Now I know this concentration right here is because I turned the piston and kind of flooded the feed. So I know why that's very saturated with shimmer right there. But despite those periods of saturation that are in there, there is a small amount of shimmer that is very evenly distributed throughout the writing, and it just, the base color of this ink of Wearing Gold 12th Night is so beautiful. It has really, really, really gorgeous, so it's right here in these highlight words, but it's this gorgeous blush pink. It has beautiful shading that comes out, which is just so lovely to work with. Let me see if I can find another example. There's some more lettering. It's yeah, oh, so pretty, so pretty. Here's another. But yeah, you can see the shading that comes out, and sometimes the shading is so drastic between where the ink has the opportunity to pool versus, you know, it just kind of lands on the page, that you can't see the writing. And I think that could be really frustrating for some users of this ink. But right here in the word grease, you can just see some really beautiful, beautiful shading. I love it. I love it so much. So this is one that would probably be best in a medium or broader nib. This nib also does a little bit of the skipping, similar to the Grand Rhapsody. This one, I did already use a brass shim on it, and I do think that that was really impactful in helping to really pull, or helping the ink to come out of the nib and flow down. So I have seen improvement. I probably will do another time or two with the brass shim just to continue to open up those tines just a little bit. But I do want to do a little bit more research before I dive into that. All right, so the combination, I really love the combination, but I am going to give it a 9. And the flow, I am going to give it an 8 just because I had to order and use those brass shims to really get that ink to come on down. But as this dries, you can see that blue shimmer starting to come through. It's just gorgeous. It's a gorgeous ink. All right, next up is the TWSBI Diamond 580 in white and rose gold with an extra fine nib. And this is inked up with Sailor Ink Studio 252 or 252 or 252, however you want to say it. So this is a really nice Sailor ink in that it has some of the chromo shading properties that I think Sailor is fairly well known for. And it has this blush pinkish purple base, and it has a little pop of pink and a little bit of blue that comes through in that chromo shading. The TWSBI Diamond 580 with an extra fine nib is for me, a very steady writer. It's very consistent. It behaves really well. I likely would not do a shimmer ink in this just because it would be more likely to clog the feed, and that might be frustrating. But with a standard ink, it handles it beautifully and even shows off some shading, which is really nice. So this, as usual, this was a very reliable and enjoyable pen, and the ink fit wonderfully into my color scheme. Now, if you don't have Sailor inks, just know they do have a scent to them. It's a little bit of a chemical-y scent. But other than that, it's really great. So the combination, I'm going to give it a 10, and the flow is a 10. Nothing to complain about here. It's a beautiful, beautiful writer. Lovely, lovely shade of ink. And the last one that I started the month with is the Platinum Century 3776, and this is the white and rose gold, and it's inked up with Sailor 50 States Indiana, which is this really, really bright pink after the state flower for Indiana, which I believe is a peony. I do have a video on the Sailor 50 State inks that I selected and the sentimental reasoning for why I selected the states that I did. So feel free to look that up and give it a watch, or throw a comment down below and ask me why and I'll tell you. This is definitely the brightest. I selected this to write in my Hobonichi 5-year, and I do not really show my Hobonichi 5-year on this channel because it is memories for not only myself but my husband and my son. It's something that we do together at dinner, and if I ever have guests over, they get roped into it too. So if you ever come to my home for dinner, I will be asking you what your memory of the day is, and it will get documented. I probably should tell people more about that because it surprises them every single time. Anywho, yeah, so this was used in my 5-year journal. I did have to re-ink it last week, I believe. And yeah, so I did already go through a converter and I re-inked it. So this was really fun to write with. It's such a fun ink. It's so bright, so vibrant. And I found myself thinking this might be really fun to put into a Pilot Parallel and use for highlighting purposes. I wouldn't use it in a book or on printer paper because it would saturate and go right through and bleed all over the place. But if I were to be writing on Tomoe River paper or Rhodia paper, or paper that can really handle a good amount of ink without bleeding, and I had ink or text that is archival and wouldn't smudge, that might work really well. So it's just a thought that I had. Who knows, I might try it at some point. So this was a really nice pair. For this pen. So this is a fine nib, and for a fur fine, it is very fine. I would probably more consider this to be an extra fine, and what I'm finding is really light inks are not going to be as enjoyable for me in this pen. So the ink that I got with this pen, or at the same time as this pen, was Wearingeul Mad Hatter, and I loved it, but it was slightly too light for the ink flow of this nib. So this being as bright and vibrant as it is, I thought it was a really nice pairing. So for a combination, I'm just going to give it a 9, just because outside of my 5-year, I don't know that I would necessarily use this bright of an ink frequently. I'm very happy that I own it, but yeah, I still think that there is an ink that I will thoroughly enjoy a little bit more. So I'm just realizing this nib just has all the pink on it, which that's fine. And then the flow, I will also give that a 9. And now for my new acquisition. I think I'm gonna, actually, you know what? I'm not gonna rate it because I didn't have it for the full month. So this is my newest pen. Oh, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And I just put a smidgen of Robert Oster River of Fire. And so I have been using that to do some of the accents. Like I said, this is a dark green kind of tealy type color, and it does have some red sheening to it that you can see in the more saturated sections, but this just shades so beautifully. Yeah, so I really enjoyed this. When I did this little swatch here today, there was definitely a fingerprint here. That's one of the things I don't love about Cosmo Air Light paper, is it is so sensitive to hand oils and things like that. But you can see the depth of the color in this little swatch right here. But then certainly the sheening comes out pretty prevalently on this paper. Yeah, so those were my pens and inks for February of 2023, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please leave me a comment. I love interacting with people in my videos, and I hope you have a wonderfully productive day. Bye.